You ever watch a finale that doesn't just end? It lingers, like an echo you can't stop hearing long after the credits fade. That's what Task did to me. It didn't wrap things up neatly. It stabbed us with the truth that sometimes doing the right thing doesn't feel right at all. And let's be honest, this isn't the first time Mark Ruffalo has emotionally destroyed us on screen. But in Task, he didn't just act, he haunted. Because the season 1 finale of HBO's Task doesn't give you the satisfaction of justice. It gives you something scarier, forgiveness, and not the Hollywood kind, the real, painful, not perfect answer kind. You know that moment when you have to make a choice you'll regret either way? That's Tom Brandis. A man torn between love, guilt, and survival, the classic trinity of emotional chaos. And when Ruffalo said it's hard for him, he wasn't just talking about Tom, he was talking about us. Because deep down, we've all had a Sam moment, that heartbreaking decision between what feels right and what is right. So yeah, today we're breaking down Task's ending, the secret meaning behind Tom's final choice, what Mark Ruffalo and creator Brad Inglesby really meant in their interview, and why this ending might be one of HBO's most quietly devastating finales in years. And hey, if you're new here, subscribe to Breakdown by Jones, because next week I'm diving into the Task finale's hidden religious symbolism that almost no one noticed. Now let's talk about why letting go might be the hardest task of all. From the first episode, Task never pretended to be about justice. It's about guilt. About men trying to fix things they broke with tools made of regret. Tom Brandis isn't your typical hero. He's not even sure if he wants redemption. He's an FBI agent, a former priest, a father, a man who's lost more than he's saved. And now, in the finale, he's asked to give up the one thing that made him believe in goodness again, Sam. The kid he protected. The kid who reminded him what it was like to have purpose again. The kid who gave him something to care about besides the ghosts in his head. And yet he lets him go. Why? Because Mark Ruffalo and Brad Inglesby decided to do something brutally honest. They reminded us that love isn't always possession. Sometimes it's surrender. Ruffalo said it himself. E doesn't think it's fair to take Sam. It's imperfect, which makes it meaningful. That's the kind of line that doesn't hit your brain, it hits your ribs. Because deep down, we all want to believe that love can fix everything. But Task tells us, no, sometimes love means walking away. And that's what makes this episode so haunting. It's not just about Tom protecting Sam, it's about Tom protecting Sam from himself. Now, here's where it gets wild, because Inglesby's explanation adds a whole new layer of hidden pain. He said that Tom couldn't truly forgive his son Ethan, the one who accidentally killed his wife, while still playing dad to another boy. Let that sink in. Forgiveness in this show isn't a conversation, it's a sacrifice. Tom has to clear the emotional space for his real son to return, and to do that, he has to give up Sam. That's biblical level storytelling, like Abraham and Isaac, but filtered through Philly grit and FBI trauma. It's almost too poetic, a father who can't heal until he loses another child. But it's not just tragedy for tragedy's sake. There's meaning buried in the pain, and that's what Ruffalo nails in his performance. That constant question behind his eyes, am I doing the right thing, or just the thing that hurts less? Spoiler, he doesn't know. And that's why it's perfect. You know, watching Tom send Sam away reminded me of something my own dad once said. Doing the right thing never feels right when your heart's involved. At the time, I didn't get it. But now, after watching Task, I do. Because when Tom watches Maeve drive away with Sam, it's not closure, it's punishment. It's the show saying, healing doesn't look like happiness. It looks like heartbreak that finally makes sense. And I think that's why Task hits so many people differently. It's not a revenge fantasy, it's a forgiveness nightmare. But let's dig into the line Ruffalo said that most viewers overlooked. To keep Sam would be more for his own comfort than for Sam's well-being. That's everything. That's the show in one sentence. Because for 8 episodes, Tom's been saving people to save himself. That's his pattern. The priest who couldn't save his wife becomes the agent who can't stop saving strangers. But saving others can be selfish when it's about avoiding your own pain. And in that moment, that quiet, devastating final scene, Tom finally breaks. He doesn't save Sam. He doesn't save Ethan. He saves the relationship that's been poisoned by guilt since episode 1. It's not cinematic. It's not heroic, but it's human. And honestly, can we just appreciate how Mark Ruffalo somehow manages to look both completely broken and like he's about to hug the entire planet? Like, how does the man pull off existential despair and dad warmth in the same frame? That's a superpower. Forget the Hulk. This is emotional gamma radiation. Also, Brad Inglesby must have a PhD in making the audience cry quietly at 2 a.m. between Mare of Easttown and Task. I'm starting to think he writes scripts specifically to ruin my emotional stability. So here's what I want to ask you, because this is where I need your opinion. If you were Tom Brandis, would you have kept Sam? Be honest. Drop your answer in the comments. Because I've been torn about this since I watched it. On one hand, he's protecting the kid. On the other, he's repeating the same abandonment he's spent the whole season regretting. And that's why this finale hurts so much, because it's not about good vs evil. It's about right vs real. There's no perfect route, just the one you can live with, which is exactly what Ruffalo meant when he said, it's imperfect, which makes it meaningful. But here's the thing most people missed, and it changes everything. That final smile Tom gives before the credits roll, that's not peace, that's acceptance. And according to Brad Inglesby, that moment is the entire point of the show, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't to fight for what you want, but to believe that what you let go of will survive without you. Sounds poetic, right? But what if I told you it's also a warning? Because if you pay attention to the subtext, the deaths, the sacrifices, the forgiveness, the show's message isn't just about healing. It's about what happens when you mistake guilt for purpose. And that might be the real tragedy of Task. Let's talk about that final smile. It's small, it's tired. It's not the grin of a man who's won. It's the look of someone who finally stopped fighting himself. Tom Brandis doesn't get closure, he gets clarity. And sometimes that's more powerful. Creator Brad Inglesby said the goal of the ending was to show a hard-earned reality. That phrase is everything. It's the opposite of a fairy tale. It's the kind of ending that leaves you sitting there, remote in hand, whispering, that's it. Oh, wow, that's it. Because Tom's arc was never about catching the bad guys. It was about catching his breath after a lifetime of running. Here's what most people didn't notice: the show hides a quiet metaphor inside that last decision. The entire first season mirrors a confessional. Every episode, Tom listens, questions, forgives, condemns, but never himself. When he finally lets Sam go, it's like the priest in him is giving absolution to the sinner in him. That's why Ruffalo said, to keep Sam would be for his own comfort. He's admitting what the whole series has been whispering: guilt can be addictive. Holding on can feel holy, but it's actually selfish when you do it to avoid pain. The forbidden truth here: forgiveness isn't about peace, it's about losing control. And that's the part that's hard for him. He can forgive Ethan only by giving up the illusion that he's the savior. He has to stop playing God in other people's stories. That's why Sam had to leave, not because Tom failed, but because Tom finally learned not to fix everything. Okay, I need to know, how did you interpret that ending? Drop your take in the comments. 1, Tom lets Sam go because he's grown. 2, Tom lets Sam go because he's broken. 3, or R, plot twist. Both are true, and that's what makes him human. There's no wrong answer, and I'll feature a few of your best takes in the next breakdown. And be honest, did anyone else think Sam would sneak back at the last second? I had my slow motion reunion scene playlist ready. Instead, we got silence. Painful, adult silence. Remember episode 3, when Tom tells Maeve, sometimes you protect people by disappearing. We thought he was being dramatic. Turns out that line was prophecy. The finale just flipped it back on him. And episode 7, Robbie sacrificing himself? That wasn't filler. That was the setup for Tom understanding that real love sometimes looks like loss. Robbie gives his life, Tom gives his heart. Both acts come from the same place. That's how Inglesby writes, every heartbreak plants a seed for the next choice. You don't realize it until you're crying over a man handing off a kid you didn't even care about in episode 1. Honestly, I need to start wearing emotional armor before I watch anything with Mark Ruffalo in it. The man could read a grocery list and somehow make me question my life choices. And Inglesby, he's that friend who says, don't worry, this one's hopeful, and then hands you a box of tissues halfway through. Mayor of Easttown destroyed me, and now Task has me reconsidering therapy. Here's the part that really gets me. Inglesby said he has to get the house ready so his son can come home. That line isn't about furniture, it's about forgiveness as renovation. You clear out the ghosts, the resentment, the self-hatred, so love has somewhere to live again. And when you look closely at the final shot, the light through the window, the quiet, it's not empty. It's waiting. That's why this finale works. It doesn't give us closure. It gives us space. Space for Tom. Space for Ethan. Space for us to decide whether we believe people like Tom can really change. Let's play the what if game. What if Tom had kept Sam? Imagine season 2, Tom trying to raise him while Ethan moves back in. Every morning would be a reminder of the son he lost and the guilt he's hiding. That's not healing, that's self-punishment. So when people say he should have kept the kid, I get it emotionally. But narratively, it would have destroyed the man he's just starting to rebuild. Sometimes the hardest redemption arcs end quietly, not with a gunfight, but with a goodbye. But let's be real, part of me still wanted one last Hollywood hug moment. You know, slow piano, tear rolling down the cheek, camera pullback. Instead, HBO was like, nah, pain stays. Also, can someone give Mark Ruffalo a happy role? The man's been suffering since 2008. At this point, he deserves a rom-com where the only thing he loses is his car keys. When Maeve drove off with Sam, I literally did that shocked. No, face. The one you do when you think the writers might actually change their minds. Then the credits hit, and I just sat there defeated, whispering, "Of course they did." My popcorn went cold. My soul went colder. Thanks, HBO. But here's the beauty and the heartbreak: Tom doesn't get punished for letting go. He gets freed. That's the final message Inglesby leaves us with. Forgiveness isn't about erasing pain, it's about surviving it. Lizzie dies, Robbie sacrifices himself, Maeve defends her family. All these losses carve out a path for Tom to believe again. By the end, he doesn't need faith in God, he needs faith in people. And when he finally finds it, he's ready for Ethan to come home. That's the ending. That's the task completed. If you felt something watching that finale, if it made you think about the people you've lost or the ones you're still trying to forgive, tell me in the comments. What's the hardest right thing you've ever had to do? Because that's what Task is really about, the cost of doing good when good doesn't feel good at all. And if you made it this far, you already know this isn't just a show breakdown. It's a therapy session disguised as storytelling. So, if you want to keep unraveling endings that break your heart and make you feel seen, subscribe to Breakdown by Jones. The next episode, I'm dissecting the hidden religious imagery in Task. And trust me, it's darker than you think. Until then, keep your tissues close, your theories wild, and remember, if Mark Ruffalo ever smiles in a finale, it probably means someone's emotionally dead inside. I'm Jones, and this was your Task Season 1 ending explained. Now go rehydrate, because we just cried together for 20 minutes, and yes, I'm blaming HBO for that.